the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Meriden, where our mission is to practice beloved community, advance justice, and nurture spiritual growth. We're delighted you can join us this morning for our online service. We will be here every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m., just as we have been when we gather at the church. If you are having trouble with this live stream, you can email us at streaming@UUMeriden.org. We'll have someone monitoring that email, and we'll try to help you troubleshoot on our end or even your end as best as we can. There's a lot going on right now in the world, and there's a lot going on with our congregation even during these times. So I want to encourage everybody, if you're not already, to make sure you are signed up for our email newsletter, and you can do that right on our webpage. After this service, there will be a coffee hour. The coffee hour will be followed by a class on famous 21st century sermons from Unitarian Universalists. We'll put up the Zoom address to log into coffee hour at the end of the service. And if you want to join in the class at noon, which will go for an hour, just email me at revtonyuu@gmail.com. revtonyuu@gmail.com. Let us get ready to worship together here online. Space here online, and where you are together with each other or by yourself is a holy time and space as we come together in this way, and we make it holy just as we do in person by our being together here. As we do, as Unitarian Universalists, we'll begin this celebration by lighting the symbol of our faith tradition, which is the flaming chalice. I invite you to join with me in saying the words for the chalice lighting that are now on the screen. May this flame continue to invite us deeper into fellowship, inspire our spirit, and ignite in us a passion for peace and justice.
Mommy, all the toilet paper didn't go down.
Mike, here we go. There once was a boy who had to leave his home and find another. In his bag, he carried a book, a bottle, and a blanket. In his teacup, he carried some earth from where he used to play. Some days the sea was kind, gently rocking him to sleep. Some days the sea was bold, and the boy held tightly to his teacup. Some days shone bright on an endless sea of white. Other days were so dark that the boy longed for the stars. Every day he watched the horizon for a speck that he could follow until it grew into something glorious. But there was no sign of land. As the boy stared at the sky, an albatross cut across the blue. The way it dipped and dived reminded him of flying kites back home. The taste of salt on his lips reminded him of the sea breeze whistling through his favorite tree. The way the whales called out to one another reminded him of how his mother used to call him in for tea. And the way the clouds slowly swam into view reminded him of how things can change with a whisper. The boy awoke to something new. Over trembling seas it grew and grew and grew. The tree gave him shelter and shade, apples to eat, branches to climb, and cozy nooks that he knew were just perfect for daydreaming from high. He continued his search for a speck on the horizon. When he first saw it, it was so small that he wasn't certain he'd seen anything at all. But before long, there was a bump. The boy was happy with what he saw, and then he began to build, and he waited for a whisper. Until the day the girl with the broken egg cup arrived. Every journey requires a traveler and a little bit of hope. Audio on.
2 decades ago. Many leaders had a sense that its death was coming, but the passing was subtle and slow. While we have been taking our time moving in and out of the stages of grief, something lingering in or returning to denial, we have failed a generation of young Unitarian Universalists. We have been unable to part ways with Sunday school and have done everything we could think of to resuscitate it, to the detriment of our youth and their families. We have a responsibility to bury Sunday school and move forward before we lose another generation. It is imperative to the future of our faith.
My mom is from a town called Mattapoisett in southeastern Massachusetts, just 2 towns removed from New Bedford to the west and 2 towns from the Cape Cod Bridges to the east on Buzzards Bay. Now it is a very wealthy community, more or less, and I doubt my family could now afford to move into the neighborhood, so to speak. But when I was growing up, we spent a lot of time there. School vacations, holidays, especially time during the summer when my mom could get vacation from her job. Now, my hometown was Leominster, Massachusetts, and no disrespect to it, I had a fine time growing up in Leominster, Massachusetts. But I've always thought of Mattapoisett as my home, the place where I'm from. I think it's because whenever I was there, it was a safe, loving, fun, almost idyllic place for a child to be. And as I look back on my life, it seems like it was, that last perfect place I was before I had too much awareness of the world. Because my family was there and because I felt so loved and because it had that magic to it of total belonging, I really felt that that's home. Years after I had grown up, and now years ago, when my family finally gave up the old family home there, I was very sad. I can go back to Mattapoisett, but I can't go back to grandmother's house. Home and family are two things. We know what they are, but we can't always easily define them. We know them when we see them. We know them when we feel them. We know when they aren't present, and we know what they are not. Both of them are very important, especially right now, as we turn to both in times of crisis. Both words, home and family, are heavy with meaning. Both things, a home and a family, can be horrible and painful as much as they can be wonderful and loving. They can be intimately intertwined with each other and yet starkly separated from each other. Both are at their best when they offer a deep and abiding, true sense of belonging. Home can be a place where you're from, the place you live, the place you feel at rest. Robert Frost told us, home is the place that when you have to go there, they have to take you in. Or I guess the place when you have to practice social distancing, they have to let you. And that's okay, but it's kind of like the lowest common denominator of home, isn't it? Paul Simon, of course, taught us that home is the place where our thoughts escape to, our music plays, and the one we love lies waiting silently for our return. That's a lot better and sounds like a place where home and family intertwine. Ed Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros say, home is wherever I'm with you. That's certainly what love and family feel like. Only we can say where home is for us. It's interesting, I had students when I was a teacher that did not like weekends all that much and really weren't all that great on vacation because when it came right down to it, I finally realized school was more home than home was. Home is a place that belongs to us as much as we belong to it. Home is the place where you are comfortable, at peace, feel safe, accepted, loved, and just part of it all. And now that we need to be somewhere, not at work, not at school, not at events, we go to the place where you're currently living. And I do hope that that place is feeling a lot like home for you. And if it's not, please reach out to me. I hope the place where you are spending time being at a distance from others now is a place where you feel a sense of deep belonging. And I hope this time of spending our worship together on Sundays online is part of what creates that feeling of home for you. I must admit that I'm angry and frustrated, and I know you are too, that in our town where the church is in Meriden, there are people without a home, that there are children in ICE detention camps that don't have a home. There are people fleeing the war in Syria that don't have a home. So we really are blessed if there's somewhere we can be right now that is home and home-like. I wanted to begin talking about home today because it frequently includes a place that we live, where we dwell, where we take shelter, both physically and emotionally. And right now, most of us are remaining in that place most of our days. And the people we are there with are mostly, if not always, people we consider family. Now, family is another one of those words. We know family comes in both healthy and unhealthy varieties. And in the form of the family we originate from, our family of origin is one. And the people we choose to make our family or our family of choice is another. For so long in human history, family has had this connotation of a heteronormative pair of parents, 2.4 children, and the pet. We know better now. Families come in all shapes and sizes and configurations. I think a family can be any group of people who consider themselves such. They belong to each other, and thus they love each other, and care for each other, and protect each other, and help each other, and support each other. I hope you are spending these days among family in addition to spending them at home. My heart truly breaks for those who feel disconnected from home and family, or feel they do not have a home and a family, or have had home and family taken away from them. Now, sometimes we live with family and sometimes we don't. I do not think single people are without family just because they live alone. They just have family that lives elsewhere. Before coronavirus altered our lives, I had planned to talk to you on this Sunday about something called family ministry and making home the primary location for our faith lives and our faith development and our religious education, both for children and adults. And now that this coronavirus has put many of us at home with family, instead of being an inappropriate topic, it seemed even more pressing to talk about it. Family ministry can be an odd term, so let's make sure we understand that it means ministry to people in the context of their lives, among those they consider family, and at the place they consider themselves to be at home. Family ministry is not a code word for ministry to parents with children, although it does include that. Family ministry is not a code word to not include everyone else in our definitions of family and home. Family ministry does not mean that everyone besides parents with kids does not count. So let's be very clear about that. You are at home with your family, and family and home are the people and place we spend the most time with. The place and people that mean the most to you. The people and place to whom you belong and who belong to you. So let's make that a holy place, a sacred place, a place where we reflect on and explore what it is we believe and value and how we should be in the world. I am very happy you are here right now with us online for this service. But even if you hang around after for the Zoom coffee hour and my class on some great recent UU sermons, and they're really good, you'll have to spend maybe 3 hours with us today on virtual church. And today you'll spend 21 hours somewhere else. If we make church the main and only focus of our spiritual lives, we're leaving out the majority of our living. Now, the death of Sunday school is a harsh title, but it does get our attention. And as the title suggests, the model of Sunday school with children in age range or developmentally divided classrooms doing different curricula is really gone, and it's probably been fading away for a generation. And now it's a model we can't really use due to the declining numbers and demographic shifts our culture has undertaken. Because of these shifts, and I want to make sure we all understand this, I know I've mentioned it before, that the generation doing the most parenting now is Generation X. They're half the size of the previous generation. They tend to marry later, if at all, have fewer children, if at all. So there's nothing wrong with the church or the RE director or the minister. They're not bad, and your church isn't failing at this. The number and culture and situation have shifted, and we need to change the way we do things. And it's long overdue, really. So I want you to think about what we spend our most time and money and resources on in terms of offering resources for religious education and faith development? Well, we basically receive our faith education and information in our lives in three ways. There's formal religious education programming at church. There's community worship, which is a major way of doing faith development and education. And we learn about our faith and traditions at home. For decades, we put most of our time, money, and resources into the religious education programming, curricula, and staffing of the religious education program, the Sunday school that happened at church. Then worship got the next level of resources, and resources for home were given little, if any, thought as we did planning for faith development. Now, what if we flip that? What if we put the majority of our time and money and resources and staffing into providing and equipping each person in each household to teach and learn about Unitarian Universalism at home? We continued to put resources into worship, and instead of getting the most of our resources, the actual programming that happened at church got the fewest. It's kind of like inverting the pyramid we've been doing for a long time. Why don't we do this? Well, it's not the way we've always done it. And if you're thinking, oh my, that's really drastic, well, think about this for a second. Think about the example I gave of spending 3 hours with us today at church programming and worship combined and 21 at home. Think about a child who goes to a UU camp for a 5-day week, overnight. They get more contact with our faith, more faith development in 5 days than they get in 1 hour every Sunday on every Sunday they go to church, which we know for even the best of us is not every Sunday. Now, if we truly want to deepen our knowledge and practice of Unitarian Universalism, we would do it this way, by emphasizing all the resources we can give people to be Unitarian Universalists and learn about Unitarian Universalism at home. If we only hear about Unitarian Universalism and only light chalices and only work for justice when we're at church an hour or two each week, eventually that doesn't really start to become something of who we are, part of what our family is, part of what our home is. Now think about it. I grew up Catholic, and you may have grown up Catholic as well. I know we have a lot of ex-Catholics. Or you may have grown up in some other religious tradition that was different from Unitarian Universalism. Maybe it was similar to this. In the Catholicism I grew up with, we had Mass for an hour a week. And that wasn't the only church we got each week. We did go back for an hour or so on a weeknight or a weekday afternoon for religious education. But the rosary is said at home, a Catholic grace before meals, the Lord's Prayer at bedtime, and First Communion and confirmation and weddings are as much as home celebrations as church ones. You didn't eat meat during Lent, and there were crucifixes on the walls, and we wore them around our necks. By and large, do Unitarian Universalists make Unitarian Universalism this present in their lives? By and large, I don't think we do. Unitarian Universalism needs to be something that is present at home and with our family if we are to truly deepen into it. What if we did this? What if we lit the chalice at home every day? What if we spent the time to go through blessings and thanksgivings with those we live with our family? And if our family is people we have to be together with online right now, what if we did that day? What if there is an area of our home, a small table, a corner of a room, that we make into a quiet place, a chalice, reflective readings, cushions, with adult supervision candles? What if we had an area of church that we set aside, like we set aside the sanctuary room at church? What if we all had that space? A space we can all go to. A space for when we need to be apart, from being apart from our family online, from being apart from our family that's present with us. A home inside the home. What if we sent home to everyone, or made available to be at home, all kinds of resources for playing games and making crafts and reading stories and asking each other deep questions? What if for adults and children there were online learnings that were quick and easy and even fun? What if we made home as holy and sacred and important religiously as our time together on Sundays? I really do think our lives would change. You know, we look at some of the people we consider holy, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Mother Teresa, and Saint Francis, and Martin Luther King. And the great spiritual difference between them and most other people is they are daily practicing their spiritual lives where they are with the people they are with. That's about the only difference, the discipline of that practice. And now is a great time for us to practice this shift to family ministry and providing people of all ages and families of all shapes and sizes and households of all configurations with plentiful resources to learn about and to teach and to practice Unitarian Universalism at home. We already have a dedicated page on our website that updates each month with dozens and dozens of ideas for reflection and thinking about that month's theme. That page includes things such as movies and music videos and articles online and podcasts and TED Talks and questions to think about for reflection and famous quotes that invite us deeper into contemplating the theme. That page includes resources just for parents and children, including a full magazine just for parents and children each month. Now that we are going to be at home more, I want to invite all of us to really make these resources a deeper part of our lives. And we will be adding more resources specifically targeting spiritual practice and reflection for a time such as this when we are socially distanced. I believe we have so much more to offer, and indeed are already offering so much more than people make use of for their continued faith development. I'm hoping we use this time when our movement is limited and we're staying more in one place to dive deeper into that. And as we make a home here online and we practice being family, let's take advantage of this time to rethink how much we intentionally and in what ways bring our faith home. I invite you where you are to settle into a moment of silence and reflection. Spirit of life, in this time of widespread illness, of physical separation and distancing, we are grateful to be reminded of what's important and what's not. We're grateful to be reminded there can be a vast difference between what we want and what we need. In what seems like an instant to us, as if waking from a dream, we live in a world where the first are last and the last are first. We give thanks with ever-deepening gratitude to the people we used to pass by sometimes without noticing or seeing, the cashier, the produce clerk, the truck driver, the warehouse worker, the nurse, the EMT, the housekeeping crew member, the pizza delivery person, the doctor. We praise with ever-increasing praise the sacred work now of artists, musicians, dancers, poets, teachers, scientists, curators, and technology wizards. With all our mind, we're ever more aware of privilege during times of scarcity, as well as the prejudice, hate, and injustice increased by fear during times of widespread sickness. We grasp that a virus has laid bare the ill health of our society's values. A society that, as Dr. King told us, values profit over people. It's reminded us income equality is too great, that too many people do not have adequate access to adequate health care, that too many people do not have places to shelter in, that racism is still strong and still used to lay blame where none exists and to scapegoat. With all our hearts, we agonize with the sick and grieve with the families of the dead and dying. With all of our soul, we yearn for help and peace to come through this time of pestilence, even more committed to the idea that we are part of an interconnected and interdependent web of all existence. With all our hearts, we hold dear all that truly matters: life, love, family, friends, and each other. During this time of disease, we will be the Samaritan, helping as we can those discarded and spit out into the abandoned places of empire by the side of the road. But with resolve that in the next season of help, we will do more to ensure that none are left by the roadside in the first place. We will celebrate joy where we find it, such as the balconies of Italy and the open windows of Spain, and we will remain hopeful for not only a quick end to this illness, but a better world to truly follow in its wake. Amen. We cannot light candles in each other's presence, but I invite you to share in the chat window what is in your heart this morning, and we will try to name and recognize what we can as we see it. Seeing Cassandra asking for prayers for her and her husband. Thanks, Angelique, for the amens. For all the people struggling with COVID-19 at home and in hospitals, and especially those who care for them. for the children and parents who feel adrift in this time of uncertainty. Well, Barbara, it's good to know you are recovering. I know you've had a rough week. We are with you. And we are mindfully aware of all those who are without homes to be in. Let's end our prayer here together by signing together, which we can see instead of singing together, Spirit of Life, while Alan gives us the music. Amen. Even though we are gathered online and not in our church building, we still do need you to continue to support the congregation financially. We are always incredibly grateful for everything you can give. And a good portion of everything we do receive that is non-pledge oriented will go to helping our social justice work. We have now made it easy to give online. So with a credit card, you can give through PayPal or use your PayPal account with PayPal. If you'd like to mail checks into the church, we will still gratefully receive them. So I'm going to give everybody a minute now to think about and or make a donation while Alan gives us a little bit of music. When we are at church together, I usually ask us to name the blessings we are grateful for. And if you would like to offer those blessings in the chat, again, we'll try to name them as we can. I'm grateful this week to an incredible worship team. Jeff May especially has done an amazing job using this, what I'm thinking is, even for me, complicated software. He is like mission control, and what a great job. And Lisa and Alan and everybody's just been doing a great job to make this happen. Thanks, John, for putting the shortcut to our donation page in the chat. I'm grateful so far for feeling well, and grateful for all the people I tend to not notice, the people who bring deliveries to the door. What are we grateful for this week? Appreciate that, Angelique. Yeah, and the truck drivers are super busy. For this loving congregation who stayed with us in times of plenty and want, for catching up with a friend who's been distant for a few years. Thanks, John. For nature, spring is coming, and that's, yes, thank you, Diane. That is going to help get a lot of us through the coming days and weeks. For Harriet's daughter, getting her help, the nurses and doctors at Midstate who are taking care of Barbara. We're grateful to them. I'm glad you're doing okay, Barbara. Missed you at the worship meeting this week. Can't wait till you can join us again. For the signing, the singing, people who stock the shelves, the grocery stores, the underappreciated and so valuable. It is strange now that all the people, some people don't want to pay $15 an hour to barely get by, are the people everyone's now depending on. Yes, for the virtual mental health care, for people who are moving their services online. Well, for these and for all the blessings that we have not named, we give thanks in the name of everything kind and compassionate and generous and good. We are still having coffee hour. So when this stream ends, I want to invite you to join us for coffee hour in the church's Zoom room. And if you put this URL into your browser, https://is.gd/UUZoom, you'll go right to that Zoom room. For those of you who want to join me for my class on 21st century UU sermons at noon, please send me an email or put a note in the comments that you want to join, and I probably have your email, and I can send you the invitation to that Zoom chat room, and I'll be there at noon. So I want to invite us all that when our stream ends to go get our coffee and our snack. I will be doing that, and join us in the coffee hour. So now we are going to extinguish the chalice. But we keep this flame with us in our heart.